Hello, everybody. Today, I will be doing basically a raw reaction to a little fable by Kafka. Now, what does this raw reaction contain? I'm gonna be reading this poem. It's not a poem. I take back what I said. Reading it, analyzing it, reflecting on it, all in one session. Now, calling it a raw reaction is a bit of a lie. I have read this short text a while ago, and I'm pretty sure, I think I already analyzed it, but I don't really remember what my main points were. And so now, since some time has passed, I'm excited to see what sort of new interpretation I have, even though the new interpretation, I wouldn't be able to tell if it's new because I don't really remember what I interpreted previously. But enough of that, let's get right into it. Let me read it out. A little fable. Alas, said the mouse, the world is growing smaller every day. At the beginning, it was so big that I was afraid. I kept running, and I was glad when at last I saw walls far away to the right and left. But these long walls have narrowed so quickly that I am in the last chamber already. And there in the corner stands the trap that I must run into. You only need to change your direction, said the cat, and ate it up. Shout out Willa and Edwin, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, for translating a little fable. Okay. I think best thing to just start off is first reactions. So, first reactions, I think best thing to start off with within first reaction is, what is this about? So, content. Basically, you got a mouse, right? Mouse in a world that is constantly getting smaller. And then as the world gets smaller, it ends up in the last part of the world. In this part of the world, it is greeted by a cat, and cat tells it to change direction and eats it. Bam. Content wise, pretty similar. Pretty simple is what I meant to say. But obviously, it's not actually about a mouse and a cat, right? A cat and mouse relationship is a standard analogy to describe a kind of like a push-pull relationship is coming to me, but that's not what it is. It's a cat and mouse relationship is the standard analogy to describe a predator and a prey, an entity that is more powerful, constantly chasing another one, while the other entity is weaker and is running away from it. There's a clear hierarchy. Cat and mouse relationship is just something normal that is just by default in ecosystems, and yeah, it's a very clear predator-prey relationship. Yeah, and the world that the mouse and the cat find themselves in here is also 1000% an analogy for something. Now the question is, what is the analogy? Basically, how I would approach this short text is, you have a bunch of different interpretations, and you basically want to support each one of your interpretations using the text, seeing how the words in the text actually connect with the bigger meaning of it. Now, one of the first ways that I was interpreting this short text is the human relationship with death. and how life goes by. Now, why did I think of this? Because yesterday I actually did a raw reaction to Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas, where the main message, the theme is the human relationship with death and the resistance to it. And so that theme just stuck in my head, and it just immediately became evident here. So, interpretations. I'm just gonna go through a bunch of different interpretations that I have when I read this and support them. So first interpretation is human relationship to death. Now, what's the human? What's the death? I'm gonna generalize it. Human relationship to life. Yeah, human relationship to life. Human to life and their death. That's better. Life and their death. The human here is the mouse. The cat would have to be death. And the world that no, this is not mouse. Human, cat is equal to death, and the world that the mouse finds themselves in is the human's life. Human's life. Now, I think it's very important to say that this world is specifically the human's life. The human is at the center of this world. Now, how do we see that the human is at the center of this world? Well, because the story of the mouse has parts of it told from the mouse's perspective. Like, I was afraid, I kept running and running, and so we get the mouse's experience in this world, i.e., the human's experience in their life. See, let me write that down. Human's life is human. I don't know how to formulate this. The human's life is at the center of the story. And now the development of the world that the mouse finds itself in is, and then, before I get to that, the cat, so death, is just an entity, a being kind of observing the world. So, the life. It's an egg just there, Cat is death. Cat is death. Is an external entity in this world. Is not external, a present entity in this world. And the death, it's waiting at the end. Waiting. No, I'm gonna make that point after. Now the development, the change in the world, the development in the world represents life going by. Life going by. The world is growing smaller every day. At the beginning, it was so big that I was afraid. I kept running and running, and I was glad when at last I saw walls far away to the right and left. But these long walls have narrowed so quickly that I'm in the last chamber already. Now, there's so much in this one main sentence here. It's absolutely insane. That's actually crazy how much meaning is in this sentence for this one interpretation. So, let's go through this. So, the development of the world. At the beginning, it was so big that I was afraid. Now, this is supposed to be a human at the beginning. I don't know, human sounds like I don't know, like I'm not a human, which kind of a person at the beginning of their life. Everything is new. Everything is new. So, which is why the world is perceived as so big. And I was afraid. I kept running and running, and I was glad when at last I saw walls far away to the right. So we see here that the person at the beginning of there, this fear that they feel is the fear of the mouse is everything is new, which is why the world is perceived as so big. And the fear of the mouse is, in fact, I'd have to say, I would interpret it as an existential fear of humans. Because we're aware of how big the world is of how big the world we are. It's late, sorry guys. Because humans are aware of how big the world is that they find themselves in, most of us, we have some sort of existential reaction to this. There is a realization that we are just these little beings in what we call this whole universe. And just like how a little atom to us is kind of irrelevant, we are just as relevant. We can be seen as just as relevant in the whole universe. Caused by the realization of our insignificance in this big world. I'm going to say of our objective insignificance. That feels like the right word there. I kept running and running. Now, I interpret this as being busy, distracting yourself. We distract ourselves by keeping ourselves busy. Because we have this existential realization, we know that there isn't really anything we can do about it. And so how I see it is you kind of just live with that existential realization. When it clicks, it kind of just stays there, just lurking in the corner. You know it's there, it knows, you're aware of it, and it just never leaves. And for that reason, you're forced to just accept it. There isn't anything you can do about it, and I think it's normal, 100% normal to feel in such a way. Now, why we feel concretely in such a way, why we concretely feel in such a way is a different question. Why are we kind of rooted to feel this, to get these existential crises is in itself such an interesting topic. Just intuitively, my first thought is as humans, we want to feel important, right? We want to feel a sense of belonging. I think this is just evolutionarily, I don't know if that's right, but basically through our evolution, we develop this sense of belonging, this sense of community, and when we realize that we're kind of insignificant, we're not actually playing a big role, it's hard to accept this fact. And now humans millions of years ago, not millions, well, I'm going to say developed humans more like hundreds of thousands of years ago, could feel this way, could feel a sense of belonging, or they could feel a lack of belonging to a community. But we weren't as evolved mentally as we are now to think on such an abstract level, which is why I don't think humanity hundreds of thousands of years ago could have existential crises. Now, this is just based on my understanding. Obviously, I don't know how similar our brains are to our ancestors. I know Homo sapiens have been around, I think it's 300,000 years, 400,000 years, and I don't want to make any claims on how similar our brains are, but at least when it comes to earlier humans, where the brain was still developing, as we were learning more skills, obviously thinking at on such a big picture level about the universe and stuff like that wasn't something we were capable of, because that wasn't a priority. When you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, what advantage does it bring to you to be able to think on such a level when you still walk around naked in a jungle, and you're still hunting your food? Now that was a little tangent, but this next part, I was glad when at last I saw walls far away to the right and left. Now, up until now, on a metaphorical level, we have the mouse in a world where it feels a lot of discomfort because of how big this world is. And they're lost in this world. And so they keep running, looking for something. The running is looking for something. But also, we look for something. The mouse here looks for walls, looks for the physical enclosure. We look for, what do we look for? I'd say we look for, but obviously the mouse and the humans, we look for comfort, but the thing is, for humans, this comfort could be so different. Comfort. It could vary from person to person, and the mouse finds comfort. It's able to see, oh, look, the walls are there. You don't feel like you're in such a big place. And for humans, this is equivalent to, I'd say, getting in a comfortable position in life. Whatever, now, comfortable is very subjective. Comfortable could mean you're fully okay and you accept this existential awareness that you have. Reach comfort. Aware of, let's say, full acceptance of existential awareness. I think for other people, since this feeling of this lack of importance can be such a heavy weight to bear, actually becoming part of something, feeling fulfilled, being fulfilled is a way to achieve comfort. Now, fulfillment in itself is a different topic, but fulfillment for some people it could be having a family. For some people it could be being a teacher. For some people it could be onto something else. Fulfillment varies. And just like the mouse, we get to a point where we feel that comfort. But, like the mouse says, but these long walls have narrowed so quickly that I am in the last chamber already. Bam. Now, based on how we've been interpreting the story up to now, it is pretty clear what this is supposed to represent. This is supposed to represent realizing that life has gone by extremely quickly, and you realize that you are the end stages. Gone by quickly, and you are nearing the end. Period. Because you see that because of the wording here, you see that this is something that is realized only once you get to the point where it's past. Realized only once you get to the point of life having passed. You see this because that I'm in the last chamber already. Like, oh, already is the word telling us, like, oh, this already happened? What? So quickly? That's how the mouse feels right now. Now, and there in the corner stands the trap that I must run into. Here, full awareness of what comes next. You only need to change your direction, said the cat, and ate it up. Now, I think the cat, I want to say that in basic any interpretation of the story, the cat is mocking the mouse and not giving any advice. And that's it. I'm gonna try and think of an interpretation where this could be interpreted otherwise, but here we have the cat representing death, basically saying, look, you only need to change your direction, which for us, life moves in one direction, cannot be done with the mouse. Maybe it could turn around and go the other way, but the cat is still going to catch up to the mouse, no matter how quick the mouse runs. The cat will catch up, and so what this is supposed to tell us that this entity, this thing that's at the end, end is guaranteed. That's how this interpretation goes. Now, for a second interpretation. Alas, said the mouse, the world is growing smaller every day. At the beginning, it was so big that I was afraid. Oh, you're gonna have to accept these brief moments of silence as I think of another interpretation. It's quite hard to find. When you have one interpretation, they focus on it. I find it quite difficult to find other interpretations. So I want to know what other ways there are of thinking about this. So I'm gonna look up themes present in a little fable, and from there, see what the others are. Existential dread, the illusion of free will, illusion of free will. Oh, that is good. That is good. So we checked off the inevitable mortality one, but free will. Oh, that's an awesome topic. I kept running and running, and I was so glad when I left this off. Free will. Oh, this is good. This is good. Free will. I don't think I would have gone to that. Even though I've kind of free will has been a topic that I kind of thought about in the recent weeks. Now, obviously, based on this story, I think Kafka presents a deterministic perspective of the world. Perspective of the world, where we have an illusion of free will. So this is basically my thesis statement. Now, where do we see the illusion of free will? This illusion, well, no, I think it's best to start with where do we see the determinism. The determinism at the end is, now I'm going to define determinism as, I'm going to look at it as I'm going to call it, in this situation, I'm going to look at it as a universal force. Hold on, before we do that, this is bothering me. Determinism, I'm going to say a universal force that causes everything through transitivity. So if this force causes event A and then event A causes B, then the force caused B through transitivity. Yes, this universal force is represented by the cat. How do we see that there is this universal force? You see that in the corner stands a trap that I must run into. So it's present. This force is present in our world. In the corner stands the trap that I must run into. How do we see the determinism here? The actual illusion of free will. This illusion of free will is clearly demonstrated by the last sentence. You only need to change your direction, said the cat, and ate it up. So in this situation, mouse has two options, right? It could A, run towards the cat, or B, change directions, as the cat says. However, both options lead to the same fate, which is determined by the cat, i.e. the universal force. If, like I said before for the previous interpretation, if the mouse decides to turn around, the cat is still going to catch it, and ultimately the mouse does not have any choice here. Where do we see this illusion? Illusion is present as mouse. This illusion of free will is present as the mouse is traveling in the world. When the mouse says, I kept running, when the mouse says, I kept running, the mouse is saying that it made an active decision. It said, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go there. And because we know that there's universal force, a causal force that dictates every single thing in this world, you only think that you are the one actually making the decisions you are making. Yeah. Mouse thinks this is a decision made fully by itself. I was thinking of trying to connect the story to Kafka's life. Kafka was known to have a very difficult relationship with his father. I think simply because of I think it was because of abuse, and so it was quite a challenge for Kafka, and this theme is very, very present in a lot of his work. In the Metamorphosis, it is super present. And here I was thinking maybe, the mouse is Kafka, the cat is his dad, simply because of this hierarchical relationship I described at the beginning, where one being has control over the other. But I don't have enough to say about that interpretation, so we'll just leave it as a side one. Side interpretation. Kafka's relationship. I think because most of Kafka's work is really it's quite sad, I want to say, and it's like tough. It's very easy to connect it to his relationship with his father, and so if you really want to, you can, which is why I don't think it's really like if I was a teacher and my students were writing an analysis on this, and a kid's main interpretation is Kafka's relationship with his father, I would, let's say that kid would not get an A. Be in the low B's, high C's. I don't know how to teach or grade, but that's just my feeling, because it's not that creative of an interpretation, yeah. Damn. Yeah, I really like the topic of free will in this. I'm trying to see what else could be connected with free will. I mean, you also see the world is growing smaller every day. The mouse has no control. The mouse has no control of what is going on in the world. The world is growing smaller every day. The mouse has no control over the external world. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful how when you read a text like this, you're able to look at it from so many different perspectives. And sometimes I've asked myself this multiple times when I've had to interpret texts. I ask myself if the authors start writing a text with a clear interpretation in mind, Or do they just start writing it? Like, okay, did Kafka write this with because he wanted to write something, let's say, about mortality, and this was the analogy he thought of? Or is this just this vivid world he's describing? Is this just something that like just comes from his soul? It just so happens to be something that can be interpreted in these many different ways. We'll never know. Um, yeah, but I mean, honestly, overall, I've read Kafka, um, and I enjoy reading Kafka because of so much meaning behind his words. Like I was saying, just this sentence, like at least for the, I'm sure there's more you could say more regarding free will using this sentence, but for the first interpretation on mortality, like you've got so much in this without saying anything about mortality. And yeah, I think that's just amazing use of words. Yeah, thank you guys for watching.